Welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Texting. It's your girl, Shade. Hey, bitches.
It's your girl, Charles Pinky.
I didn't know we were singing and I'm not prepared. It's Glenn. Oh, I gotta
Good.
That was melodic.
Welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Texting. I'm joined by Chelsea Pinky. We can't quite get our schedules right. You know, I wasn't in the last one. Glenn's not in this one. But
Notice who's consistent.
we're dedicated to the craft and we're going to be here. We're going to get it done. Very excited for you all to hear this week's guest. But shall we jump into read or reply?
Okay. On read or reply.
I can jump in if you want to
Okay.
get your
My notes.
thoughts. I'm doing a read or reply combo. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Been seeing a lot of, discussion around mental health on the socials, but also recently have had a lot of people just be very open about their mental health with me unexpectedly. I was speaking to someone and they were like, yeah, I was diagnosed as depressed and now I'm on medication and I feel so much better. And I was like, oh, wow. Like shit that, especially these are Black women that I'm talking to. Yeah. Black women talking about their struggles with depression, anxiety, just mental health challenges so openly. And I am fully replying to it because I feel like we definitely need to stop stigmatizing these conversations. Like so many people are going through a lot. We're all going through a lot. And I think the more people are open that, they are having challenges will just make everyone talk more freely about these subjects and just not make it taboo. Just make it like a part of life, the same way that you might be like, I have cramps. So you're like, I'm anxious and I'm taking CBD all day, like whatever it may be, And I think that like a lot of people don't want to be deemed as like quote unquote crazy or like something is wrong with them, but like nothing is wrong with you. You're just living as a human being in the society, and especially as a Black woman. Kudos to you. So I'm replying to that. But what I'm leaving on read around this subject is that I think it is still so challenging for Black women to have these conversations. Like, we don't even necessarily have the language. And I'll even take this out of Black women. I'll say Black people. Like, I'll talk to some of my male Black friends and they'll describe stuff to me. And I'm like, oh, babe, you have anxiety. Like, that's anxiety. And they're like, what? What the fuck is that? And I'm like, yep, you're anxious as hell. You definitely should look into that. And like, when you don't have resources or like honestly, frankly, privilege to even understand that and like tap into that and fix some of those challenges or work through some of those challenges, I think is really unfortunate. And we suffer as a people. And so I'm leaving that on read, but I'm hoping that on the reply side, people speaking more about it will encourage folks to explore and just get their mental right, because that is number one before anything else.
I love that. Get your mind right.
Get your mind right. Get your mind right.
I'm replying to this video that I saw on Instagram, and I just wanted to share it because I think I shared it with you guys and no one responded.
I don't know. There's so many. It's too much. It's too much.
But this was the sound.
Do exist.
Wait, hold on. Okay.
Soulmates do exist. They're not. They're made. People meet, they get a good feeling, and then they get to work building a relationship. And with enough time and love and effort, two people become one thing.
Isn't that beautiful? Like, I think we have this, and, I'm on these audio speaking apps where people love talking about relationships and, everybody trying to get married, but like, there's not enough fish in the sea and there's pee in the dating pool and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, guys, it's not like a Disney movie.
No.
And this is something that I'm still learning because I didn't grow up watching husband and wife in the house. So like, and I think like, many people didn't, especially in our community. Um and it's like you don't just stumble. It's like Cupid's not throwing arrows around and it's like you're going to be in love with this person forever and it's just going to be easy breezy, everything super cover girl. What's that thing? Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. It's like you make the choice. No, it's like you find the person. Obviously, there has to be that like connection, whatever, that feeling. The spark. And then you decide like, oh, okay, this is the person I'm going to work through life with. And like, that's a decision. So
yes,
I love that he said like soulmates aren't found, they're chosen. Is that what he said?
They're made.
They're made. Yes. They're made. And I just thought it was a beautiful quote and I saw, not quote, but little clip. And I saw it and just wanted to share it because it really resonated with me.
I do love that.
Yeah. And then I'm leaving on red Donald Trump and the fact that he is the top of the food chain in terms of Republican candidates running for president. So there's that. We might get a round 2 of Cheeto Man.
And he's just getting charge after charge, case after case, up in the courtroom.
But he's like doing the little Kim dance, like kind of dodging things and might still run for president.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Like maybe it's like this is your last hope, and I really pray that some folks like get it together and they're like, oh wow, he's a manipulative, terrible human being. I should not do this. But I don't know. We'll see how it really all comes to fruition. Not to be gloom and doom, but I really think that everybody sucks.
Yes, everyone does suck, but he in particular really sucks.
He particularly sucks.
It's so weird to, like, I think, we're in New York and LA, we're in our little bubble, but like a lot of this country really likes Donald Trump, which is freaky.
Yeah, I don't know. I really am like very unclear what the fuck is going on. I'm like, who's even running on the Democratic side? And then I listened to a podcast and they were like, well, it's very sensitive with people like announcing because there needs to be party alignment. And I'm like, I'm not getting behind this nigga Joe.
So you gonna vote for Trump?
I'm good on Joe.
So you gonna vote for Trump?
No, I need some other options. I need them to. I know Marianne Wilson has put her name in the hat. I want to say there's one other independent that's put their name in the hat. But like,
party
what's
needs to be
happening?
aligned. We can't split the vote.
Joe Biden does not need to run again. Like, what are we talking about?
He might.
That man, no, he needs to pack it up, hang it up. I don't know.
Fold it up.
Yeah. But on the positive side, I do want to say I very much love what you shared on the soulmate front. Sorry I didn't listen to it. Lots of content sent all in all them chats.
Oh my God. We have a chat, listeners. It's like me, Sade, Glenn, and one other friend. And this girl sends the wildest videos.
I'd be like, no,
I'm like,
no,
nope,
no.
Scrolling past.
Yeah.
Scrolling past.
That's why like I
There's
just be
like
missing
100
shit.
videos every day.
I know.
I'm
that could be the damn hotline bling shit.
I'm also replying to the TikTok I made. Took me about an hour.
Yes, it was great. I loved the little like fit check, boom, food, boom. I was like, oh, okay, transitions, captions.
That shit is hard. That application is not easy to use. I'm sorry, Gen Z, you guys are literal geniuses because I'm not sure how you're making all those videos on TikTok all day.
I agree. Like I do think it's intuitive. Like you can figure it out, but it takes so long. I'm like, how are you just cranking out? Is there another app that we're not aware of that like aids with that app? Like I don't understand.
There must be. There's something that we don't know because the fact that I had to rewatch that damn video like 1,000 times to like
And then you keep
get
hearing
to
your
the part.
voice. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my
I was like, oh
God.
my God, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm not a TikTok girly. And I am in this other group chat with my friend and her little cousin now. And the little cousin is, in college and she's like always sending TikTok videos. So like now I've become like, I'm still not a TikTok girly, but now I'm on TikTok a little bit more because she keeps sending me stuff. And I'm like, these videos, people just be recording anything. So
They
I'm gonna
do.
do the same. I'm gonna just record shit and post it
They do. It's
and see
true.
what happens.
It's
Because these
true.
bitches are getting sent to Turks and Caicos,
I will say the girls are
Dubai.
clever. Like I watched one where someone was just in her car, but it was like the captions and the little emojis. And I was like,
Mm,
wow, look at that. She had a little razzle dazzle, but she's sitting in the damn driver's seat.
car.
Just pulled
Yeah.
over. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Yeah.
Not that hard.
Yeah.
Oh, should we briefly talk about that tart thing?
So I don't really understand it still. I started watching a video. It was very long, and I frankly
Don't care.
don't care in the
Knew you were
nicest
gonna say
way.
that.
In
Knew
the
you were gonna say
nicest
it.
way.
Okay, well then we don't have to talk about it. Maybe
We
we'll
can maybe get
invite the
into it.
creator on.
Get into it on the Patreon or invite the creator on. Because
Yeah.
like every time I turn around, there's new stuff. I'm like, oh my God, this is
Juicy,
like,
girl.
this is crazy.
Juicy.
But I do love that. Well, actually, this could be my hotline bling. You should definitely sign up for the Geneva.
Yes.
Because if you're not familiar, Geneva is an application. It's similar to like a Discord. It's a chat space where we are connecting with BGT listeners and just friends.
It's a group chat.
Yeah, it's a group chat, literally. And just great conversation going down in there. That's where, I went there. I was like, girls, what's going on with this tart shit? And, they were trying to help me get to it. But I was like, ooh, lots of
They gave the
information.
resources.
They did
It's a
give the
great-
resources.
It's a great community. Join our Geneva. How do they find it? Is it on our Instagram?
It is
We'll try to post about it on our
maybe in our
stories.
link tree, but yeah, we'll post it on our stories, and then I'll make it easy to access.
Join
yeah.
our Geneva. It's
Join
so
us.
fun.
It really is. It warms my heart. But let's get into the BGDS and Le Group Chat. All right, y'all. It's time for the group chat. Okay, you guys, our black girl doing shit this week is Tšhegofatšo Ndabane, reporting from South Africa. She is a writer, a podcast publicist for mental health practitioners, and currently getting her Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology from the University of Cape Town. Congratulations to you. Her words have been featured in various international publications, including Refinery 29, Well and Good, Life and Time, and Food 52, amongst others. When she is not writing away or sitting with the stories of her clients, you can find her guzzling endless cups of tea. I love that so much. Exploring nature or experimenting with another baking recipe. You got your tea on deck. Thank you so much and welcome. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. I'm super excited for everyone to hear this episode this week.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be having this chat with you.
Absolutely. So we've discussed the importance of friendships in the past. We've had a friendship coach on, but I was super intrigued when you reached out. The subject line was like romantic friendships. And I was like, what is that? And so you wrote an article for Refinery 29 titled, I'm single, but I get all the romance I need from my friendships. And you had shared that you believe in the importance of showering specifically your Black women friends with just as much respect, thoughtfulness, and reasonable expectations that you would uphold in romantic relationships. So I'm very curious about like how you even got there. I feel like people don't necessarily think of platonic friendships in that way. And yeah, I'm just really curious. I want to jump right in because I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a concept I've held all my life. I really came about it a few years ago. And at the time, I was really struggling with my mental health, but it was really like getting through that season of my life. It was really my Black woman friends who saved me in a lot of ways, you know, like they were just there. And I realized slowly over time, I was kind of like, you know, we all have romantic relationships and they'll last for however many months, however many years. And yet some of our friendships are they're some of the longest lasting relationships we actually have, but they're not as celebrated in the same way that romantic relationships are. So, you know, Black women will literally hold each other through some of the deepest of trenches. And on the other side, like, you know, we'll talk about it, but you know, it's not, songs are not written about friendships the way romantic relationships are. There aren't all sorts of, you know, poetry and movies and, you know, it's just not this massive thing that is celebrated within contemporary society. So I kind of started looking around and I was like, well, when I look at my friendships with other Black women, they're filled with so much romance. And a lot of it started with just the little things that I would otherwise have received from a romantic partner. So it was just like a friend surprising me with a flower delivery on a random Tuesday while I was at work, you know, or friends being intentionally physically affectionate with me when I needed affection, or to be hugged, to be held. It was them showing up on days when I really didn't have capacity to cook a meal for myself and saying, actually, like, I'll cook a meal for you and look after you in this way. So it was just kind of, I started to look around me and I thought, you know, my friends are doing things that would really, a lot of the time, would come from a romantic partner. And yet it's not spoken about in the same way. So I kind of thought, if this is something that I've experienced, you know, at a time when I was in crisis, it's something that I would like to keep on practicing even when I'm not in crisis. So even right now, like, I've got friends who I write handwritten letters to and they do the same, just because it's a medium that I enjoy. I love writing handwritten letters, and I love, you know, within romantic relationships, that's always something I've kind of been like, oh, this is so amazing. And I thought, well, I can still write romantic, you know, letters to my friends who are completely platonic, and we can still send each other cute things in the mail. So that's kind of where it started at a moment of crisis, but over time I kind of started to think a little bit more about it. And I was like, I'd like to be more intentional about this and not have it as something that just happens when there's a crisis, but as just a way of maintaining and nurturing and looking after my friendships any other time, really. What do you think? Have you had moments
That's
when you
beautiful.
think some of your friends have been romantic towards you, but you didn't classify it in that way?
Yeah.
Mm.
I think so for sure. I think a part of romance and or I'll say like intimacy is
Mm.
not just obviously sexual. Like I think someone who just will take time or make time to listen to you when you need to be
Mm.
listened to, or someone who will just be like a shoulder to cry on if you need to, or even like someone to celebrate your wins with you when you want to celebrate. Um, yeah, I definitely can relate to what you're saying. And I think friendship should have like that level of intimacy and
Mm.
not just with your man or
Mm.
lover.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think the key part of what you said is like, and you haven't thought about it that way, because I'm like, I would never even like classify it in that way. But yeah, definitely have had friends that I connect with in like a very deep level. Something that I thought about a lot as I was looking at some of the themes that you shared that you wanted to discuss was that it really depends on the friend, because I actually feel like the closer my friends are, the less I realize it, because it just feels like part of the dynamic, which I guess also happens maybe if you're in like a very long term
Mm.
relationship. Like some of those things you don't even notice
Mm.
anymore. Maybe you don't like appreciate or notate as much, versus friends that I have to like actively check in on or actively catch up with.
Mm.
Then I realize like, oh, we're doing all these things that are very similar to maybe things you might do in a romantic dynamic, which made
Mm.
me be like, oh, wow, okay, I gotta like sprinkle the love equally amongst all my friends. Another thing I thought that was super interesting is you said that there's a lot of research that shows that friendship is one of the strongest indicators of good mental health and physical health. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the thing, right? Like what I'm finding interesting about what you say is when friendships are more intimate, often we like there isn't as much intention. So we kind of automatically rely on the bond of the friendship to just keep itself going, even if we're not
Yes.
actively nurturing it. But I think there's something, it makes sense to me. And as I was reading the research, it made sense to me that this would be the case because it's, what friendships do is they provide a level of safety. It's like this really deep psychological, emotional safety. It's sort of like a safety net. So as you go through life, as you go through your day, if you have a moment of crisis on any particular day, like that there's this person who's going to be available and show up for you and gather you if that's what you need in that moment. That if you fall ill, there's this person who is going to, who's going to show up and be at the hospital with you if that's what's needed, or
Mm-hmm.
take care of things while you're in the hospital and cannot necessarily take care of them yourself. And I think the difference with this is like with other sorts of relationships or with romantic relationships at least, like we've got all sorts of rules that we live by, right? So like as a partner, you're like, oh, as a girlfriend, this is what I'm supposed to do and this is what I'm not supposed to do. And I think when it comes to friendships, those rules are not necessarily there. So you show up quite authentically.
Yeah.
Um, and you're just like, I'm here to support and I'm fully available regardless of what the rules look like. I mean, how many times has it happened where a friend will be going through something and they'll start to retreat a little bit and you'll sense them retreating. And instead of being like, oh, she's got an attitude, why is she acting like this? What is this about? We don't take it as personally. Instead, you rush in and it's like, what is going on? Like, tell me what's happening. Like, how do I help you? That sort of thing. So I do think that, you know, um, friendships have they've just got this level of emotional safety that's not really rooted in rules of engagement and what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do, but we're able to show up in really authentic ways, and that allows for a physical and mental sense of safety that we don't necessarily get in other friendships, or sorry, in other relationships rather.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this commercial. It's for a car, so it's very strange. But all these gentlemen are getting in the car, and it's one of the gentlemen's wedding day. Like you can tell he's the groom. He's sitting in the front seat. All his friends get in the back seat, and they're like, "Oh, are you ready? Da da da. This is such an exciting day." And then he like texts. I hate this commercial. I literally fast forward it if I can, but it'll be like he texts all his friends, "I love you," and then they like open the phone,
Mm.
and they're all like, oh, but like he couldn't say it. Like, and I just am like, oh, this is like perpetuating such terrible stereotypes of male friendship dynamics. Like, he can tell his friends audibly, I love you. It's your freaking wedding day. And it's like, he has to text his friends, I love you. And then on top of that, it's for a car commercial. It's just like, no, I was not a fan. But it just made me think of like how layered it is because as women, cis women, there is certain expectation around like that we are more gentle and we are more nurturing and we are more soft with our friends. And then there's a whole other layer when you go into cis men. It's like, whew.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like it's not. Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like there's so many layers to that ability to be intimate with someone, even like a romantic partner. I think gender is one. I think racial dynamics have to do with it. Like you have to think about how, especially like Black people in America, that's the experience that I am more familiar with. The ways in which like love is shown in families, and maybe it's not so affectionate, and so then you get into those habits of maybe not being comfortable with telling your friend I love you. Like I have a friend and she's Latina and she's always saying she loves me and always hugging me, and I'm like, this is so not natural for me.
Yeah.
But like it's becoming more natural because we've been like practicing it and doing it,
Mm.
and
Mm,
she's opened up that doorway to just say I love you every time we stop speaking. So
yeah.
I think it's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm all about telling our friends we love them. Like make it weird, however weird it gets, like
Make it weird.
yeah. There's a little meme I saw that says that, like tell
No,
your
I
friends we
think
love
that's
them, make it
important.
weird.
All
Mm,
this stuff, like I can't even lie. I'm like, oh, I don't do any of this.
yeah,
So you spoke as well, and when you reached out about just certain things to do with friends. So
yeah.
scheduling friendship check-ins, understanding like where your friends are at,
Mm,
understanding boundaries, how to have, your needs met. And
yeah.
I was like, I don't do that at all. Like, I don't even think to do some of that. I'm like, I actually had a friend recently just call me out of the blue, and I was like, hello. And she was like,
Mm,
hey, I'm just checking in on you. Like, how you been? What's going on? And I was like, I'm good. But it was great that she did that because it was funny. Like, I had actually just been thinking about her. So it's really weird how that
mm,
happened. But yeah. How do you put that into practice?
mm. Oh, the way this came about is I remember having a conversation with a friend, and she brought up something. It was a conversation that we'd had, I think, like 2 years prior, like an incident that happened at an apartment that she stayed with a roommate. And at the time, like when the conversation came up, it was just like, oh, like, do you remember the situation? Like whatever. And at some point, I asked her something about like how she felt back in the moment when all of this was happening. And she then told me that at the time when she was having a rough time with her roommate, she actually tried to tell me about this whole incident, but I hadn't heard her or understood her the way that she needed to be understood. And I
Mm.
realized that it had been a pain point for the past 2 years, and I hadn't known about it, but it was something that she had been holding on to. And I remember kind of taking that. For me, it presented itself as an opportunity, and I actually apologized for the fact that I hadn't been there for her in the way that she needed me to be. And so later on, I thought about it, and I just, it saddened me actually that here was this thing that she had been holding on to for so long. I had kind of moved on, like it was just like this funny incident of a thing that had happened that happened to mention a while ago. But there were parts of the conversation that her and I had that had stayed with her, and that had just, had still been pain points for her at that point. And so since then, I kind of started, I realized that I needed to start asking that there will be moments when friends mention things to me, and I don't necessarily hear it the way that they are intending for me to hear it. But if I actually schedule a time where I'm like, hey, I would actually like for us to check in on how we are doing in our friendship, those things then have room to come up, like it automatically creates the safe space where it's like, if there's something you have been holding on to that I've been holding on to, there's a dedicated space to have those conversations. Because I think that if something happened 2 years ago, like I know I would feel a little bit weird bringing up something from so long ago to a friend, kind of be like, well,
Mm-hmm.
like I should be over it by now. But now that I'm having these check-ins, like it helps to kind of firstly just checking on where my friend is, like in terms of their own life and what's going on for them. Life gets busy. We all have things going on, and it's not always easy to have those in-depth conversations. So those scheduled check-ins help with that. But also, I find that it's so helpful to explicitly ask about the condition of the friendship, and whether, to find out if I'm meeting their needs in the way that they need to be met, if their needs have changed, like I mean, we know our friends in particular ways. And I know sometimes like there's things that my friends need during a season that they won't necessarily need all of the time, but if they let me know that actually I would like us to like talk on the phone more often right now because this thing is happening, then I know that that's how I need to show up. And the same goes for them. So there isn't as much resentment that kind of that builds up because we're not showing up, and not because we don't want to show up, but because we don't know that we need to show up in a way that's a little bit different
Right.
for a period of time. So Yeah, it's really, honestly, it's really just about setting a time and essentially just asking the question of like, how are we doing in this friendship? How are you feeling about
Mm.
where we at? Because the thing that we would do in other relationships, right? Like with a romantic partner, like
Yeah.
we'd have those kind of check-ins, you know. And I mean,
Mhm.
I sometimes it feels a little bit weird, you know, and I've noticed some friends have been like, oh, I've never thought about this. This is a bit strange, you know, but after a while they start to like appreciate it because it's just it helps to nurture us how we need to be nurtured at any particular moment.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Mm.
Chelsea, you said it's a practice. You're like, oh, the more you've practiced it,
Mm.
saying I love you, it just becomes more
Um,
normalized. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's like a great strategy. I do think probably you have to know your friend because I'm sure there are certain friends that if I'm like constantly checking in with them, they'd get irritated.
Yeah.
And probably because they're not so, what's a nice way to say this, in tune with their own feelings and their
Mm-hmm.
own emotional practices. And so
Mm.
they're not yet advanced enough to have those conversations. But
Mm.
um, I think that's like a great strategy. And like you said, you do it in your romantic relationship. So why not the person that you
Mm.
probably known before that person and
Mm-hmm.
will know after that
Yeah.
person potentially. So
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was saying the last thing I wanted to touch on that I found super interesting was
Mm.
the importance of understanding your friend's love language, which actually I haven't necessarily like explicitly voiced this to some of my friends, but like when my friends do share their love language in their romantic relationships, or like, I don't
Mm.
know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, it's kind of like a personality test. Like,
Mm.
I just take like mental note, like, okay, this friend is like
Mm.
an acts of service friend. So I'm gonna like help them with the dishes. But like this friend is a words of affirmation friend. So I'm gonna be like, you did great. But like I've never
Oh.
actually explicitly had the conversation with the person. I'm just like, okay, how do I better communicate with them? And I thought that that was so cool. So I'd love to dive into that because I think a lot of people would probably be like, love language with my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I think love languages go for absolutely everyone, whether it's friends or romantic partners or family. Um, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
important the
Family.
important thing there for me was it's not it's one thing to know people's love languages, and it's a whole different thing to actually love them in those languages, even if they are different to ours, you know? Because I think
Mm-hmm.
often it's easy to love people in our own love languages, right? Like I know my primary one is quality time, so it's easy for me to schedule time to see my friends and all of that. But there's some that are not as simple, or they don't come as naturally to me. And so I have found that when I either just, through a different conversation, find out what a friend's love language is, or they actually tell me what their love language is, then I find it's so much more helpful for me because I'm like, well, maybe I don't have to schedule the brunches and the lunches and the dinner, the nights out having dinner to like have conversations. Maybe what I can do is cook them a meal every now and again when I know that they've had a busy week, because they'll definitely receive and understand that a lot more than if I'm like, hey, let's go for lunch and have a conversation, or let's go for a walk in the park and have a long extended conversation. Um, so I mean, I remember this. My friend, he was so 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 sweet. This is a guy friend, and he's not the most he's not a hugger. But we'd had a conversation about love language, and I told him that, well, I do like hugs and that sort of thing. And I remember the one day he came to me and he's like, okay. So I remember that conversation we had about the hugging. And I don't really like hugs, but I do want to give you hugs. Like, not all the time, but I do want to do it. And so what I'm gonna do is from now on, if you give me the space to initiate the hug, like, then that's like, I'm pretty sure I can do that. And I literally watched him. It was the sweetest thing. I watched him kind of like take a little, like, this deep breath and be like, okay, and open his arms and come and give me this like really long squeezy hug. I was like, I actually appreciate it, like that you are doing this. And for me, it wasn't even at that moment. It wasn't about the hug itself. It was about the fact that we had this conversation, and he had gone in his own time and thought about it, and then made a decision about how best he would be able to meet that need. And so even, I mean, since then, even if he doesn't like hug me, I don't like, I'm not bothered by it, because I know that like whenever he does decide to do it, he will have thought about it, and in that moment it will be an active act of love. Like, it's not just something that he does because
Mm-hmm.
it's a socially acceptable thing to do, or it's what you do when you get around with your friends or whatever. So I found that so adorable, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I appreciate it, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable and feel like you have to hug me all the time. But the amount of thought that he put into it, and the love that he actually poured into that single hug that he gave me that day, I was like, this is the best. Like, if you're gonna be this intentional about every hug that you give me, fantastic. But they don't have to happen every single time. So I think that's really what it is for me. That kind of, that kind of underlines my whole thing around, loving our friends in the language that they're most able to recognize it, because it takes a little bit of extra thought. But in that moment, like when
Thoughtfulness.
they
Yeah.
receive it, they'll fully understand what you're doing. And it won't just be another thing that you do because it comes more naturally to you or whatever.
I love that so much.
I know, it's so sweet.
And it's more like, yeah, the thoughtfulness. And then you're like, you
Yeah.
understand that this is important for me. And yeah, very, very similar to, you know, intimate romantic relationship you might have with a partner. It's like really just applying a lot of those learnings. So makes a lot of sense now how you think about romantic relationships. Before we go, I know you are studying clinical psychology at the University of Cape Town. Would love to know how that has or is like has influenced some of the work you're doing, talking about romantic relationships and maybe just other things that you've been diving into in your studies.
Yeah. Right now, I've completed my clinical training, so I've done all the actual like therapeutic work part of it. Right now I'm working on my thesis, and I'm actually looking at intergenerational constructions and ideas of rest, amongst Black women. So that I've been just getting so much joy. A thesis is a hard thing to do, like it's tedious and laborious and all of that. But I've been getting so much joy from all sorts of conversations that I've been having with the people around me, and with my friends as well, about like our own ideas around what rest looks like for us as Black women. Um,
Yeah.
how we've seen rest modeled to us in our families, for instance. Older women in our families, how do they rest? What practices of rest do they employ? Um, is rest even a real thing, right? Like it's kind of become a thing at the moment where I check in on my friends if they're actually resting. And like if
Yep.
they're scheduling time to look after themselves in that way. So that's kind of been a beautiful space to be in, where I'm doing this really academic work, but at the same time it's gotten me to like interrogate a lot of my own ways of being, and have conversations with some of my Black women friends about their ways of being and how they exist in the world and how they take up space.
I'm excited to maybe read your thesis. I don't know. I feel like I'm like when it drops. I know it's a lot of work that goes into it, but the
Yeah.
subject I think is like really important. And yeah, when you were saying rest, I was like, do people rest? Because I know when I'm resting, I'm like not even really resting. I'm like
Yeah.
resting, but I'm like, I'm gonna send 12 emails right now
Right.
because this is like my
Constantly
downtime.
I don't know if this is technically rest, but I have this new obsession with it's like a version of Pilates. And I think in those 50 minutes, I'm literally not thinking about anything. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a form of rest,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
No,
Mindful
I
rest.
I see that like when I work out in the
Yeah.
morning, that is my alone time. That is the only time that I'm really only focusing on myself. So yeah, I definitely get that. I definitely get that.
Like, I mean, the
Ooh,
fact that
which
you have
is, I
space
don't
to
know if
just
that's
be
a good or bad
alone.
thing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share with the listeners, anything that maybe you've recently written or that you're working on that we should keep our eyes out for. And we can also
Or if you're on
definitely share it in the
social.
show notes. Yes.
So I am on Instagram at XO underscore Tšhegofatšo, my name. I also recently started a newsletter called Words Less Spoken, um, which yeah, like that's been my own little creative project that I'm trying to pour into as a form of rest in its own way. Yeah, so those are. I'm also on LinkedIn. That's more if you'd like to connect with me in terms of my work. But yeah, those are the few mediums that you can reach me on. And yes, honestly, what I want to share with some of your listeners is just like, please rest as much as you can. Like, we deserve it. Like, especially as Black women, nobody's gonna tell us to do it. They're not gonna stop everything on our behalf and say like, go take a nap, go have a rest, go relax, and we deserve it every day, all the time. Like, so rest as much as you can. We are worthy of it always.
I love that
Yes.
message.
Hmm.
More things for me to employ that I have not been great at. But you know what? Every day is a new day. Every
Yes,
day is a new day.
yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Hmm.
And we'll definitely be on the lookout as we think more about romantic relationships, resting. We'll be sharing our updates with you as we put this all into practice.
Oh, please do. I'll
Awesome.
definitely be
Thank
keeping up
you.
with you as well. Thank you so much for this conversation. I've enjoyed meeting you both.
Absolutely.
What would you do?
Okay, so not to fill the conversation with Geneva propaganda, but it is a very popping place. And a topic that was brought up in the Geneva chat was that two of the ladies in the chat are actually experiencing really challenging breakups. And so they asked, what have you done to get over breakups? What can we do? Chelsea's confused. She don't know how to
I'm
use
like,
the
I
app.
never saw that message.
It's in the group chat. You just be chatting and introduce yourself,
Oh,
which is fine.
wow. Just seeing it.
But yes. So one of the young ladies, I don't know, we'll let her remain anonymous, but she is a huge supporter and we appreciate and love you very much. Thank you for riding with us for so long. And we feel for what you've been going through. But with all that being said, advice for getting over breakups. I spoke about some in the chat, but I'm curious to know, Chelsea, what you're thinking, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah. I think for me, it probably depends on so many things. Like, is it a mutual breakup? Were you the one who was broken up with? Were you the breaker-upper? I think that would determine a lot of how I function in terms of the healing process. But I think something that is just important to note when you are dealing with a breakup is, I know it sounds corny, but like, this too shall pass. Like,
Yes.
think about how many, at least for me, like, the end of a relationship came and like you were devastated and crying on the bathroom floor and literally felt like you were going to die and like your life was over and like your eyes were puffy and hurting because you were crying your eye sockets out, and like just think about like how little you care now. Like, it's just it's a part of life, and it sucks, and I think it's fine to like sit in the suckiness, but
Yes.
then just like keep in your mind like it's gonna be over. Like, you're not gonna be sad about this person forever.
Yeah. Literally, same. I was just like, listen, time, as much as this is so annoying to say and so annoying to hear because you want a quick fix, but time is the ultimate healer. Like, you just have to ride the fucking wave. And I think as I've gotten older, really understanding the importance of like feeling your feels. Like, if there's a day and you're like, I'm not getting out of bed, I'm crying and I'm eating a bacon, egg, and cheese and I'm listening to sad music, lean in, do it, have the moment. I think journaling is really, really helpful. I did that through a breakup, and it helped me just because I had so many like swirling thoughts, and I was just like, get out. Like, and I just would write it all down. Definitely a time, if you can, to seek out therapy, just because I feel like it can definitely help with like tangible tactics on things that you can do, and also help you understand more. Like, I'm very much a like, who, what, where, why, how did this happen? And I think having someone to like talk you through it is helpful. But at the end of the day, time. You'll look back months from then, years from then, and be like, wow, I was down bad, but now we up.
Yeah.
And it'll happen.
And like, that's not your person. And if you are, say you're the person that was broken up with and you feel like that is your person, if it is your person, it'll come back, you know? And if it's not, it's gone, and good riddance. Yeah, but breakups are hard. They really suck.
They suck.
It's literally like your person all of a sudden is no longer your person, which is a crazy feeling. But
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
You will be just fine. And use this time to really pour into yourself. Like, all the things you learned about yourself in that relationship dynamic, you know, just becoming the best version of you every day, whether that's for another potential partner, whether that's for your friends, your family, and your career. Like, there's so many learnings that come out of these types of relationships. They definitely are a mirror to you.
Yeah.
Which is, oh my God, I don't know. Maybe I was listening to Esther Perel. I was listening to somebody, one of these people who talk a lot about like relationships and romance. And they were like, so many people think that they can work on themselves and then show up in a relationship and like just kill it. And like, actually, a relationship is such a mirror to your flaws, because someone is actively calling you out on your shit that either, yeah, maybe you're aware of, or you don't even know, and working with you through that process. So as much as you want to work on yourself as well, I think being cognitive of like whatever feedback you got, challenges you had in a relationship are really good to just think through and work through. So
Yeah. And not all feedback fucking matters. Like,
true.
someone might have an issue with something you do, and I think it's your decision to decide, do I have an issue with that? And like, be honest. Like, is this something I should grow? Like, I should develop and try to like change, quote unquote, about myself. But sometimes it's fuck you.
That energy as well. And sometimes you can lean into some toxic behaviors. I think you get a small hall pass. You know, you want to live a little hot girl lifestyle, get on the apps for a quick distraction, you know, book a
Right.
quick flight, take a quick trip. You know, nobody can tell you how to go through your grieving process.
Go to the spa, get a massage, do some cupping. Oh, do you want to see my back?
Is it still all spotty? Oh, wow.
It's not as bad now, but
No, it's not.
yeah.
The good stuff.
But it'll go away, and
Yeah.
pretty soon you'll forget his name, and you'll be like, who? Who are you? I don't even care about you.
Sure. In that voice and everything. Well, wishing the girls all the best. And listen, whoever going through a breakup right now, you're in a good season. You
Right.
are in summertime season.
Thought it up.
Hit the street season, okay? This ain't no, he broke up with me right before Thanksgiving. Like,
Right.
no.
I'm in the cold by myself, drinking
You
hot
got
chocolate.
time. You got
Yeah.
time. Let the sun hit your skin. Let the cat calls roll in
Mm-hmm.
to some degree. Don't be out here harassing women. And yeah, keep us posted on how it's going. And like we said, join the Geneva chat, because we out here shooting the shit, giving emotional support, just doing all the amazing dynamic things that Black women do.
Yeah. Well, as always, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We are Black Girls Texting on all platforms, really, except for Twitter, in which we're Black Girls Text One. Please play the YouTube videos, even if you put them on mute. It's really helpful. Rate, comment, subscribe, leave comments, engage on our stuff as we grow. We really appreciate it. Oh, and support my TikTok that I just made. Love you. Bye.
Yes. Bye bye.